Jai Giridam Jaya Girigamadan Girigamadan Jaya Girigamadan Jaya Jaya Jai Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev Jaya Jaya Gurudev Jaya Jaya Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol
Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Ashtotar Shata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Ashtotar Shata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Iskcon Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Adantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Purushottam Kshetra Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Srimati Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bo. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Vihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari 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 Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana 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 Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari 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 Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Guru Deva, 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 Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Gurudev ki jai, Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Hare Krishna. Welcome to this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class. Ravi Prabhu, can you close that door? I don't know why it is open. Today we are reading from Canto 8, Chapter 18. Titled Lord Vamanadeva, the Dwarf Incarnation. And we'll be chanting the verse where the description of the appearance of Lord Vamanadeva is given. यत्तद्वपुर्भाति विभूषणायुधैर् अव्यक्तचिद्व्यक्तम् आधरयद्धरी बभूव तेनैव स वामनो वटुः सम्पश्यतो दिव्यगतिर्यथा नटः यत्तद्वपुर्भाति विभूषणायुधैर् अव्यक्तचिद्व्यक्तमाधारयद्धरी बभूव तेनैव स वामनो वटु सम्पश्यतो दिव्यगतिर्यथा नटः यत्तद्वपुर्भाति विभूषणायुधैर् अव्यक्तचिद्व्यक्तमाधारयद्धरी बभूव तेनैव स वामनो वटु सम्पश्यतो दिव्यगतिर्यथा नटः यत्तद्वपुर्भाति विभूषणायुधैर् अव्यक्तचिद्व्यक्तमाधारयद्धरी भूवतेनैव सम्पश्यतो दिव्यगतिर्यथा नटः यत्तद्वपुर्भाति विभूषणायुधैर् अव्यक्तचिद्व्यक्तमाधारयद्धरी बभूव तेनैव स वामनो वटु सम्पश्यतो दिव्यगतिर्यथा नटः यद्वपुर्भाति विभूषणायुधैर् अव्यक्तचिद्व्यक्तमाधारयद्धरी बभूव तेनैव स वामनो वटु सम्पश्यतो दिव्यगतिर्यथा नटः यत्तद्वपुर्भाति विभूषणायुधैर् अव्यक्तचिद्व्यक्तमाधारयद्धरी बभूव तेनैव स वामनो वटुः सम्पश्यतो दिव्यगतिर्यथा नटः यत्तद्वपुर्भाति विभूषणायुधैर् अव्यक्तचिद्व्यक्तमाधारयद्धरी बभूव तेनैव स वामनो वटु सम्पश्यतो दिव्यगतिर्यथा नटः यत्तद्वपुर्भाति विभूषणायुधेर् धरी अव्यक्तचिद्व्यक्तमधारयद्धरी तेनैव समामनोवटु बभूव तेनैव सवामनोवटु Sampashyato divya yadha nata. You did good. Anybody else? You want to go? No? All right. Yat, which, tat, that, vapuhu, transcendental body, bhati, manifest, vibhushana, with regular ornaments, ayudhe, and with weapons, avyakta, unmanifested, chidvyaktam, spiritually manifested, adharayat, assumed, hari, the Lord, babhuva, immediately became, tena, with that, eva, certainly, saha, he, the Lord, vamanaha, dwarf, vatuhu, a brahmana brahmachari, sampashyatoho, while both his father and mother were seeing, divya gatihi, whose movements are wonderful, yatha, as, nataha, a theatrical actor. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhaya Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. The Lord appeared in His original form with ornaments and weapons in His hands. Although this ever-existing form is not visible in the material world, He nonetheless appeared in this form. Then in the presence of His father and mother, He assumed the form of Vamana, a Brahmana dwarf, a brahmachari, just like a theatrical actor. Purport. The word nataha is significant. An actor changes dress to play different parts, but is always the same man. Similarly, as described in Brahma Samhita 5:33-39 and 39, the Lord assumes many thousands and millions of forms. Advaitam achyutam anadim anantarupam adyam purana purusham. He is always present with innumerable incarnations. Ramadi murtishu kala niyamena tishtan nanavatara makarod bhuvaneshu kintu. Nonetheless, although He appears in various incarnations, they are not different from one another. He is the same person with the same potency, the same eternity, and the same spiritual existence, but He can simultaneously assume various forms. When Vamanadeva appeared from the womb of his mother, he appeared in the form of Narayana with 4 hands equipped with the necessary symbolic weapons, and then immediately transformed himself into a brahmachari, Vatu. This means that his body is not material. One who thinks that the Supreme Lord assumes a material body is not intelligent. He has to learn more about the Lord's position. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 4:9, Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo vetti tattvataha. One has to understand the transcendental appearance of the Lord in His original transcendental body, Satchidananda Vigraha. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Romapada Swaminiti Namine Namo Vishnupadaya. Vedaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pachachya Deshatare Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratvishe Namo He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So, we have been getting ready to come to this point of Lord Vamanadev's incarnation or appearance. Previously, in the last few chapters, just to kind of summarize what's happened. Anybody wants to?
So the demons kicked out the demigods from their kingdom. And Aditi, the mother of the demigods, she was so sad. So when her great sagely husband came home, she bowed to him and asked to please remove her sadness. And so he gave her a process of worship that would invoke the presence of Lord Vishnu in her life. So she very obediently followed the process and worshipped the Lord. And it is said that due to Kashyapa's austerities, actually, the Lord came. So this is the Sadhu Sangha. And when he came, he told her, I have a plan. So we're about to hear his plan. He's going to take birth from her womb as this wonderful small brahmachari and steal back the kingdom from the demons for the demigods.
Very nice. Thank you, Prabhu. So, as Prabhu was mentioning, so the previous incarnation of the Lord was Mohini Rupa. So he was actually, the demons felt cheated by the Lord and they were kicked out. I mean, obviously, the battle has been going on for the last few chapters, this entire, I guess, canto actually. It's a battle canto. So they have been battling back and forth. So it's like they have seen ups and downs. I mean, so at one point, Bali Maharaj was in charge of everything, and that's when the demigods went to Lord Brahma and then ultimately to Lord Vishnu. Oh, we are kind of we don't have any more energy to fight. And then Vishnu said that, okay, go and churn the milk ocean, get some nectar, and so that you can get some power. And so they did that, and then, of course, again, they lost the nectar part, and so then again the fighting came up on. And then, of course, again they had to run back to Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu said, okay, I'll help you one more time. And so he came as Mohini Murti, the beautiful form of, female form of the Lord. And with his potency, he was able to get the nectar to the demigods, and of course demons felt cheated and they started again fighting. And and so of course because of the power of the nectar, the demigods were able to basically defeat Bali Maharaj and his troops. And then Bali Maharaj goes to his spiritual master, Shukracharya. And he says, what to do? And Shukracharya says, okay, then you have to get some more power. Just like they got the nectar, you have to get some power. And so then Shukracharya advises Bali Maharaj to perform some austerities and sacrifices, and then Bali Maharaj gets his power back, and then again he goes and kicks Indra out, and then again Indra and demigods are running around bushes. And of course, being the loving mother, Aditi cannot see their plight, and so, like Prabhu was saying, when Kashyapa comes home, she basically kind of puts all her problems in front of Kashyapa, and then and Kashyapa actually tries to advise her in a nice way that you were actually talking about, right? Those some of the instructions that Kashyapa was giving, because what have you done to the Brahmanas? Or have you not served the Brahmanas? Or have you not taken care of the brahmacharis? Or things like that he was actually inquiring. But what happened? She didn't get it. So sometimes it is said that even as devotees, when we go out for preaching, we go and speak all these subjects, but maybe the person who is actually hearing may not be at that level of understanding or hearing those instructions. So then what did Kashyapa's lesson? What is the lesson that we learn from Kashyapa? What did he do? He came to her level. He said, what do you want? Right? I mean, he talked about all this high philosophy, but she didn't get it. So he asked her, what do you want? And so then she said, I want somebody to defeat these people. I want the Supreme Lord as my son. Or actually, Kashyapa instructed her. So basically then Kashyapa said, okay, that's what you want, so here is the process. And so he explains to her, I think it's called Payovrata or something like that. So he actually asks her to perform this austerity for 12 days, I believe. And then she performs those austerities nicely. And then the Supreme Lord appears. So it is actually described that this is the second incarnation of the Supreme Lord in the womb of Kashyapa and Aditi. Of course, previously they were known as Prishni and Sutapa, right? So they were actually, in the previous age, Prishni and Sutapa, they were praying, they actually performed a lot of austerities and devotion to Supreme Lord. And then when the Lord appeared in front of them, he asked, what kind of benediction I can give you? And they requested him. What is the request? We want you as our child. And the Lord was like, nobody asked me this before. This is the first time I'm getting it. And so he is like, okay, I mean, this is a very, very rare desire somebody asked me, so I will give you the benediction. And so, so then he appears in this age as Vamana in the womb of Kashyapa and Aditi. And then when does he appear again? Krishna in the womb of Devaki and Vasudeva. So the Prishni and Sutapa actually takes these different forms, and so the Lord appears 3 times in the womb of Prishni and Sutapa. And it looks, I mean, you can see the similarities, the appearance of Vamana and also the appearance of Krishna. Right? How did Krishna appear? In the 4-handed form originally, right? In front of, and also before he appeared also, how did he manifest? How did he actually appear? He actually, it is described that he entered the heart of Vasudeva, mind of Vasudeva, and then from there he appeared in the four-handed form. And the same thing in this, I don't know if it is in this chapter or in the previous chapter, it described that the Lord actually appeared, entered into Kashyapa first, right? And then, so he didn't appear as an ordinary human being. He didn't have that's what is the description is, the Lord doesn't have a material form. So Prabhupada also mentions in the purport that the Lord appears in various forms. He appeared when he appeared in the womb of his mother in the form of Narayana with the four hands equipped with all the necessary symbolic weapons, and then immediately he transformed into Brahmachari, the Brahmachari or the Vatu form. So similarly we can see in the pastimes of Krishna, when Krishna appeared also, he appeared in the four-handed form, and then he manifested his two-handed form as Krishna. Yes.
I just want to make a comment. What you're describing reminded me of what Prabhupada said about that four-armed form that appeared to Devaki and Vasudeva. He said that this is a form of Krishna that is established now in a deity form. The deity in Tirupati, Balaji. Balaji means young boy. So Balaji deity represents, or is, that form of Krishna who appeared with four arms, four-armed Vishnu form to Vasudeva and Devaki, Prabhupada said.
Very nice. Thank you, Prabhu. And actually, it is described that why did the Lord had to appear in the four-handed form first? Prabhu.
Know that he's God.
Yeah, that's what our acharyas described. That, I mean, the Lord doesn't have to prove any point, but the thing is, for the mundane people that are going to hear about these such pastimes, because anybody can say that I am the Lord, right? Nowadays, especially, when we have Lord in every nook and corner of the streets of India, especially. Lord specifically appeared in the form of four-handed form to make sure that to delineate himself from these false gods or false so-called propaganda about that I can be a god also. So that's why he appeared in the four-handed form, and then he appears back in the two-handed form. And so Prabhupada explains that in this purport that Lord appears in so many different forms, and of course because of our lack of people's understanding, they may not about his inconceivable potency, they may not be able to recognize, or they may not be able to understand the supremacy of the Lord's appearance, or the speciality of the Lord's appearance, right? Actually, Srila Prabhupada often used to give a analogy of elephant in the dark room, right? So when somebody, if it is a dark space, and when somebody tries to go and find the elephant, or they might see the trunk and they say that, oh, it's a rope, or if they see the leg, they might say that it's a trunk of tree or something, and then somebody touches the roundness of the elephant, and oh, it's a round ball, it's a thing. But when the light actually appears, then they can see actually the elephant. So the same way, when somebody gets the knowledge of spiritual knowledge of the Lord, then they will be able to actually perceive or recognize the Supreme Lord. Like in the case of, even in the case of when Lord Krishna appeared, there were so many people on the battlefield and even in the assembly of Kaurava assembly. But they didn't, the other people were, especially when Maharaj Yudhishthir was doing the Rajasuya Yajna, they were being, he was glorifying Krishna in so many different praises. But there are people like Shishupal and Duryodhana, they are like, oh no, he's just a Yadava. He's just a cowherd boy. Why are we talking about this cowherd boy? Why are we making him as the head of this assembly? So it is, so that's the point that Prabhupada is trying to make. And also, and the other point that Prabhupada makes specifically is that his body is not material, and he says that one who thinks that the Supreme Lord assumes a material body is not intelligent. He has to learn more about the Lord's position as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. So Janma Karma Cha Me Divyam. So it's even in it's basically it is said in Bhagavad Gita also. The people who doesn't recognize the spiritual nature of the appearance of the Lord, it actually says that their intelligence is stolen by Maya. Right? So, and of course, people explain, theologists explain that, oh, it's a psychological delusion. It's basically people are experiencing some emotional experience caused by the interactions of one's mind along with the material nature. That's what is, they're concocting these forms and these different pastimes and things like that. And so, so our acharyas explain, our scriptures explain that basically we have to understand the Supreme Lord as a person according to the need and place and according to the circumstances. Like in this case, the Lord appeared as a small brahmachari, a dwarf brahmana, right? It's a small form of brahmachari. So it is, we have to be cognizant of how the Lord appears in various forms and how Shishirada Nilamada, how he performs different pastimes. Shishirada Nilamada ki jai, Shishirada Giridhari ki jai, Shishigiri Raj Govardhan ki jai, Shishi Nitai Gaurachan Nitai Chaitanya Chandra ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Gurudev ki jai. And also here it is explained that how in the the Lord appeared in this form as in the parental love mood, because Kashyapa and Aditi wanted to serve the Lord, because also that's another explanation why when the Lord appeared in the four-handed form, then he transformed into this Vamana form, because Kashyapa and Aditi wanted to serve the Lord in the mood of baby or a small boy. And so that's why, and even though he was a dwarf Brahmana, he was so beautifully decorated, and his effulgence, so it's actually described that his of course, and when he appeared in the four-handed form, his four hands were decorated with conch shell, club, lotus and disc, and he was dressed in yellow garments. Same description if you go back, if you go to the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, how the Lord appeared before Devaki and Vasudeva. And of course, and then when the Lord appeared in this beautiful form of Vamana, then the greats, actually there were already present, the great sages were present, so they actually performed the birth ceremony, the ritualistic ceremony of birth, and then the sacred thread ceremony was performed. As soon as he was born, actually, He was already grown up to that 5-year-old, 6-year. I mean, he was a small young boy. So they performed the sacred thread ceremony. And sun god actually, describes that the sun god personally uttered the Gayatri mantra. And Bruhaspati offered the sacred thread. And then Kashyapa Muni offered the straw belt. And Mother Earth gave him a deer skin. And the demigod of the moon, he gave him the Brahmadanda, the rod that a brahmachari carries. And his mother Aditi gave him the cloth for underwear, because he was very simply dressed. And the deity presiding over the heavenly kingdom, Indra, gave him an umbrella. And and then, of course, Lord Brahma offered water pot, and then the 7 sages offered him kusha grass, and Mother Saraswati gave him a string of rudraksha beads. And so Vamanadeva was fully equipped with all his paraphernalia, and then he goes for begging alms. So what is the responsibility, or what is the duty of a brahmachari? Brahmachari voice? Beg alms, actually, for whose benefit? For the spiritual master's benefit, right? Because it is described that they should, as a service to the spiritual master, they go out in the Vedic system and they beg alms, and then after they return to the spiritual master, and whatever the spiritual master takes, then the remnants are honored by the brahmacharis. And so he takes the takes his bhiksha thing, and who does he go to beg his first alms from? Actually, Lord Shiva's wife, Bhagavati. And she is actually described as the mother of the entire universe, right? So she is the one he first approaches, and she is the one who gives him his first alms. And then he proceeds to the palace, where the sacrificial ceremony is being done by Bali Maharaj. And it's also interesting, Bali Maharaj, if we think about Bali Maharaj's character, he is actually born in a demoniac family, right? I mean, so his nature is supposed to be demoniac. But is it his nature is demoniac? No, his nature is devotion. He's a devotee. I mean, but what did he? What is the service that he was given? No, just in general, I mean, to rule the asuras, demons. So his service was actually to rule the demons, even though his nature is devotion. So oftentimes we have the same dilemma. Oftentimes? All the time. I want to do this, Prabhu. This is what I think I'm suitable to do. But when somebody gives a service, or a spiritual master asks you to do service, I don't know if that's my nature. Right? So a lesson from Bali Maharaj is that even though his nature is devotion, but he took upon the service that was prescribed by his spiritual master. Who is his spiritual master? Shukracharya. So he actually took the service. Of course, later in the next chapter, we will actually come to the conclusion when the exception has to be made. When the Supreme Lord himself comes and instructs you or asks you for something, then the exception, then Bali Maharaj makes the exception. So, and we see that same example in Srila Prabhupada's life also, right? Srila Prabhupada, I mean, he was very well settled in Vrindavan. And his nature was to perform bhakti in devotion peacefully in Vrindavan. And actually in those days, a sannyasi is not even supposed to travel across the ocean. It's prohibited according to Vedic scriptures. But what did Srila Prabhupada do? He took the service instruction from his spiritual master. He said, that is what I need to do for that is the demand of the day. And so he traveled across the ocean. And not only he traveled across the ocean, he had to go through so many austerities. He was very nicely situated they were treating him nicely, in Radha Damodar temple. Because even Prabhupada explains that, at least in those days, even now also, when a sannyasi is around, people respect the sannyasi and provide whatever the means and needs the sannyasi may have at the time. And so, but Srila Prabhupada took the instruction from his spiritual master, and which is that was his service, that to go out to the Western world, to the land that he doesn't have any idea and he doesn't know anybody, and preach. Right? And actually, I was listening to a story or a pastime of even Tamal Krishna Maharaj, Goswami Maharaj. When I think it's in San Francisco temple, I believe. Basically, there were so many devotees, and everybody was, but the temple was being, I guess they had lack of funds. So, the only person that was actually bringing any money or funding the whole thing was Jayananda Prabhu. And he was working all night long and bringing whatever Lakshmi that the temple needs for managing the whole crew. And then he was going out in the morning for the rest of the services. And so this came to Srila Prabhupada's notice, and Srila Prabhupada instructed that everybody should go out and get a job. And find a job, because this is not fair. Just one person works all 24 hours a day, and we have to sustain on that. So go out and get a job. And everybody was like shocked, and what are we going to do to get a job? And so it was described that Goswami Maharaj, actually Gargamuni, I think, Gurudas Prabhu, he knew somebody, he had some connections in a local Kodak store. And so through his connections, both Goswami Maharaj and Gurudas Prabhu found jobs. And so they were working there. But it was not their nature. Their nature was to go and Harinam and do Sankirtan and those things. But they were following the instruction of the spiritual master. And it was difficult for them. And actually it is described that Goswami Maharaj was so perfect in everything he does. So soon after he started the job, the management really liked him and they promoted him. They gave him more responsibility. And it became more, Goswami Maharaj was like, what am I going to do with this? This is not what I like to do, what I want to do. But I had to, but his nature, his nature of perfection comes through, and they gave him more responsibility. And so finally, of course, even when they were doing those jobs, they were taking the lunch break, that 15 minutes or a half an hour that they get. They were going out and they were, actually Prabhupada tells them, if you are, Goswami Maharaj writes to Prabhupada, it's very hard. So Prabhupada says, go out and chant during your lunch break. And so they go out during the lunch break and they do the chanting, and then they even distribute their own prasadam that they got. And so they were still doing devotion, but they were also following the instruction of their spiritual master and the authority. And then finally, Goswami Maharaj gets to a point that this is becoming too much, and so he writes to Srila Prabhupada again, and he says, Prabhupada, I mean, this is really hard on me. And then Prabhupada says, okay, then you go out and preach on the streets, go out and do book distribution on the streets. And that's how the Radha Damodar party started. Then Goswami Maharaj said, yeah, that's what I like. And so he and Vishnujan Swami started going out and doing the kirtan and book distribution. And so that's how the Radha Damodar party. So the instruction, the lesson is that even though our nature maybe we think is something, or we may feel something, but ultimately we have to follow the instruction of the spiritual master, and that's how we actually get the perfection in our devotion service. It's not that what I like to do, it is what is demanded of me at that particular time. What is the service that is needed for the pleasure of the spiritual master and for the pleasure of deities and the devotees. So it's a very important instruction. And so, and of course, we will hear more about this pastime, because I don't want to break the storyline. Not that nobody knows, but so at the end, to summarize this chapter, because that's what is my today's class is supposed to be, is that so he finally Vamandev appears on the at the place of where the sacrificial ceremony was being being done by Bali Maharaj, and of course, as soon as Vamanadev appears there, of course, there were already so many Shukracharya and so many great sages that were assisting Bali Maharaj with the ceremony. But Bali Maharaj could recognize Vamana's special potency, because as soon as he appeared, it is described actually is that he is like the rising moon with the fading stars of these other Brahmanas or other sages that were performing. And so the Lord appears there, and then Bali Maharaj receives him very nicely, and he washes the lotus feet of Vamanadev. And of course, later on, it describes that the same lotus feet, which the toe of the lotus feet broke the spiritual covering and got Mother Ganges to earth. So that Bali Maharaj, in his mood, because he was a devotee, irrespective of whatever his service that he was performing, and so he could recognize, and then he offers very beautiful prayers, and then he asks Vamanadev, what can I serve you? What can I give you? And he directly asks you. You looks like you came here for something. And so in the next chapter, we will hear what Vamana asks. And today also is a great devotee, Narahari Sarkar Thakur, so disappearance day. And Narahari Sarkar Thakur Das is actually described as an associate of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. He is from a village known as Srikanda. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that the residents of Srikanda are the Narahari Sarkar Thakur Das and his associates were also, when Kaviraj Goswami describes about the tree of devotion of Lord Chaitanya, he describes them as the 37th branch, I think, 39th branch of the tree. And, and Narahari specifically is the 40th branch of this tree of devotion of Lord Chaitanya. And they were very close to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and even Jagannath Das Babaji also mentions that Srikanda, the village where Narahari Das is born, is actually the abode of Vaikuntha. And Narahari Das actually, Narahari Sarkar Thakur participated in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. And in the Bhakti Ratnakara, it describes that Narahari Thakur's glories are most uncommon. And in the Krishna Leela, he is known as Madhumati, one of the associates of Srimati Radharani. And it actually describes a pastime where one day Nityananda Prabhu arrives in Srikanda, and he comes to Narahari and he says that, we know who you are, where is the honey? Because Madhumati is, Madhu means honey, right? So Madhumati is his original form in the Goloka Leela. So he asks, where is the honey? And so Narahari Sarkar, it describes that Narahari Sarkar immediately goes to the pond nearby and makes the whole pond as a pond of honey. And Nityananda Prabhu and all his associates who were visiting, they all dug into that pond of honey and they drank the honey. And Narahari Sarkar Thakur has a very famous disciple. His name is Lochandas Thakur. We hear quite a bit about Lochandas Thakur because he wrote Sri Chaitanya Mangala. After the pastimes, Kaviraj Goswami describes in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Mangala actually goes into much more juicy details of the Lord Chaitanya's Leela. And it is described that in the Chaitanya Mangala, Lochandas Thakur actually describes that how Gadadhar Pandit and Narahari Sarkar Thakur used to regularly visit Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and they used to have very sweet reciprocation. And then also even Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur also describes about Narahari Sarkar Thakur. What is the thing we sing every day evening? Kiba Narahari Adhikari Chamara Dhulaya. Right? So we even Bhaktivinoda Thakur also glorifies Narahari Sarkar Thakur Das. It's described that Narahari Sarkar also was a very expert singer as well as a poet. He composed many songs about the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. And his work was entitled Sri Bhajanamrita. And it is actually described that in the assembly of Lord Chaitanya, only Narahari Sarkar Thakur was allowed to glorify, to sing beautifully in glorification of Lord Chaitanya. Because Lord Chaitanya, as you know, he was not very Jai Shri Shri Radha Nila Madhava ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Giridhari ki jai, Shri Shri Giriraj Govardhan ki jai, Shri Shri Nitai Gaura Chandritai Chaitanya Chandra ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Gurudev ki jai, Gaura Premanandi. As we know, Gaura Hari, or Lord Chaitanya, was not very fond of people praising him, especially in public assembly. But only Narahari Sarkar Thakur was the exception. He allowed him to glorify him. So today is the disappearance of such a wonderful, great personality. So let's remember him and pray to him that we also get the mercy to praise Gaura Sundara in his assembly, when we get his assembly. Arivo, any discussion, any topics? Anybody else knows anything about Narhari Sarkar, Thakur, that they want to share?
I'm not sure about this, Prabhu. Maybe you can clarify. Was he the one who advised Srinivasacharya to...
That's a good point. Actually,
Get
there is
married.
another Narahari Thakur. So, that Narahari Thakur comes later on. And he was also he was the actually associate of Srinivasacharya, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So there is some confusion in terms of because even though Narahari Sarkar Thakur has written this Bhajanamrita, various wonderful songs in praise of Gaura Sundara, but then later on Narahari Thakur comes and he also writes very beautiful prayers. So somehow or other they are mixed up. That's what our acharyas say. But he's a different personality. At least that's what, as I understood, as it is explained.
One more question.
Mm-hmm.
You said Lord appeared to Prishni Garbha and
Sutapa and Prishni.
Sutapa and Prishni.
Mhm.
3 times.
Mhm.
One was Vamana, Krishna, and
The previous one, Prishni Garbha, right? Prishni Garbha. In the age of Satya Yuga, he appears.
thank you.
Hare Krishna. Because Prishni is the mother, so he came out of the womb of Prishni. I think that's why Prishni Garbha. All right. Grandraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Premanande. Hari Hari.